Okay, the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development in its World Investment Report 2021 indicates that global flows of foreign direct investment have been severely hit by the COVID-19 pandemic. According to the report, in 2020, they fell by one-third to $1 trillion, well below the low point reached after the global financial crisis a decade ago. FDI into Africa was said to have been slashed by 16%, with Nigeria recording a slight increase in inflows into the country. To talk more about this with us is a macroeconomist at Chapel Hill, Durham, Michael Ogunremi. Thank you very much for joining us, Michael.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
So what's your take on the recent report by UNCTAD on global FDI inflows?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. So to start with, I'll say that the released report sort of aligns with, expectations on how global investment, was going to play out. On the global landscape, what we noticed is that, FDI flows dropped, by 35% to $1 trillion. And that is on the back of the fact that across the three major categories of investments, international project finance, cross-border mergers and acquisition, and greenfield project announcements, we saw.
We seem to have Mr. Michael.
Yes, please, can you hear me now?
All right.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, so I was saying that one big insight for us is the fact that the slowdown that was recorded, amongst developing economies was much more, lower than what we saw, with the developed economies. And this was on the back of the fact that most of the developing economies, sort of opened up, their economies more quickly than the developed ones, where we saw, more severe cases of the COVID-19 pandemic. So overall, I'd say that yes, the slowdown was expected, and I think that for most developing economies, the performance was a little above expectation.
All right, Michael. Well, but despite the decline in FDI and in Africa, Nigeria saw a slight increase in its inflows. What would you say drove this, considering the insecurity challenges in the country?
Okay, so for Nigeria, quite right. FDI surged marginally from $2.3 trillion to $2.4 trillion in 2020. I think for us, the big driver is the fact that we had some sort of brownfield investment. By brownfield investment, I mean investment that were existing before the pandemic happened. So whilst we did not see as much new investments that would trigger FDI flows into the economy, we had some existing investments that were already initiated prior to COVID-19. And most of these, we saw in the Lekki Free Trade Zone, and this is a very good. This was a very good initiative for the government, because what we've seen so far is that the Lekki Free Trade Zone has been attracting most of the FDIs that has come to this country because of the incentives that are tied around that establishment. Another key driver for us was the fact that the economies have opened up very quickly. The lockdown we had, in 2020, did not go beyond, 2-3 months, and then the economy was opened, and then activities began to pick up gradually. And I think that these two factors, the early opening up of the economy, and the fact that we had some brownfield investment in the Lekki Free Trade Zone, sort of drove the marginal improvements that we had in investments in FDI in Nigeria.
Now, UNCTAD projects FDI to Africa to grow by only 5% in 2021. What are the mitigating factors, and what would be your outlook for FDI inflows, particularly in Nigeria?
So I would say I'm not surprised. Quite right. We expect that FDI would increase at a very slow rate in 2021. And this is because of the fact that when you look at, factors tied to vaccination, as well as, what exactly is the bias of, Africans towards, the vaccines. I'm not too surprised that, we have this weak growth, being projected by by UNCTAD. So to speak to vaccination, what we've seen so far is that, the progress has been largely, diverse across African countries. Whilst you have, countries, like Ghana, countries, like Egypt, going at a very fast rate, to vaccinate, their population. You have some other countries, doing so at a very, very slow rate. And another big concern, for us is the fact that we have a very strong apathy, amongst, Africans towards the COVID vaccine. Now, when you combine both factors together, what you then see is the fact that we may not have a very strong FDI come the end of 2021. And that is why I believe that the UNCTAD had to project, that small, amount of growth in FDI. But in terms of outlook, what we expect is that we would expect that Europe would definitely have a higher increase, in FDI relative to Africa. And again, like I said, this is because of factors like vaccination, factors like apathy to the vaccine. Another key factor to look out for in terms of outlook is the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. Whilst there has been some sort of stalemate in trying to conclude the entire program, what we can say is if AFTA is able to come on board as early enough, let's say late 2021 or very early 2022, we expect that even if we have a slight increase in FDI in 2021, we can expect some sort of significant increase in 2022. So the points being that AFTA has a very huge role to play in terms of putting Africa to pre-pandemic FDI levels.
All right, Michael, we'll have to leave it there now. Thank you so much for your time on the program. Michael Ogunremi is a macroeconomist at Chapel Hill Denham. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.